Your new medical billing software will not have any procedure codes pre-populated in it. What you'll need to do is either create them or, better yet, import them. To import them, you want to go up under the Master Files menu, down to Transaction Codes, and then over and click on Procedure Code Import. Up at the top, go ahead and enter in a code range that you want to view the list of codes before you import them, or you can do it by description, but I find it a lot easier to enter in a range. Let's say 90,000, hit the tab key to 91,000, and then when I'm ready, click refresh, and it pulls that range of codes down below. And I can go ahead and select on any code, and down below change its defaults. Most offices are okay with the defaults here, meaning that they're okay with diphtheria, that the place of service is usually the office, type of service is usually medical care. What that means, if you go ahead and you check the box and you click on import, even though it imports with those defaults, if you have a patient that you post this charge to that the place of service wasn't in the office, no worries. When you're posting the charges, it'll allow you to change it there. So again, these are just defaults. So let me go through with the rest of them. So this field, category, if you have a group of procedure codes you want to tie to a specific category, click on the ellipsis button. And you can see I've got some here. Your key won't have any in it, but to create some you want to click on the Add New button. And then simply up at the top type any code you want. For example, I typed in AL for allergies, and then the description was allergies, and then just click Save, close out, and it'll be listed here for you to double click on so it comes down in as a category. The nice thing about assigning a category to your procedure codes is that in the medical billing software here, there are actually some reports you can pull up by category your procedure codes. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it and just continue here. The defaults, usually there's no tax on procedure codes unless you're selling vitamins and you want to go ahead and tax them. Ancillary is usually going to be no. That's not being used at the moment. Most offices want to be able to bill their charges electronically. Yes. Does it require a CLIA number? Set to no. Do you want to be able to bill the insurance and the patient with this procedure code? Yes, yes. And you want to assess a copay, so when you post the charge, if the patient is responsible for a copay, do you want to be able to collect on that? And most definitely yes. And then if the code is already in the system, but you made changes here, you can check this to override it so it updates the code. Otherwise, when you're finished, go ahead and click Save. But again, if you don't touch any of these defaults and you go through all of these and you're saying, I'm fine with these defaults, just go ahead and check them. In fact, if you check the checkbox up here on the right hand side, it checks all the procedure codes, and then you can uncheck the ones you don't want if that's easier, or check the box next to it to clear them all out and then just check them as you go. In any case, when you're finished, go ahead and click on the import. Once it's done, it removes the check marks here to let you know that it imported those procedure codes. Now, I'm sure you're probably asking yourself, that's very annoying if I have to go in and I got a lot of updates in this range, the 90,000 range, because I want all of them to not assess a copay, or maybe I don't want to bill insurance. The place you want to go to make all these changes in groups instead of one by one in here is before you import them. Better yet, go under the Master Files menu, down to Transaction Codes, and go to the Procedure Import Defaults. This is where you want to go if you want to make changes to a group of codes before you start importing them, instead of doing them one by one. So for example, if I want all of my immunizations to not assess a copay, you can see I clicked it here. I'll uncheck it, save it, then I'm done. I just have to go back to my procedure code import screen, which if you notice I didn't close out of it. Because I didn't close out, it minimized to the bottom of the screen here as a button. Click on it, pulls it back up. Just be sure to click refresh, and then if it was part of the code range here, it would be updated. So when I selected it, it would be unchecked here, so then I can go ahead and import it and not have to select one by one and keep clicking save for each procedure code that I make a change to. One final note, back in the procedure code import defaults, you'll have a default range here. If you don't want to use these ranges, well, you can always select them and then rename them, whatever makes sense to you, but more importantly is the range here. You can delete them or update them, but just keep in mind that if you're not going to use the range over here and you want to make your own, it's probably best to delete them and start creating your own, because, for example, let me click clear. If I just make up one and call it a name, and I use a range, let's say 90,000 to 91,000, you'll notice I'm already using a range that's already over here. If I click save and it's already over here, it's saying, look, you're overlapping with something that's already existing, so either use what they've got here or select it, delete it, and create your own. In any case, set up your defaults so it's all clean. So when you close out and you come to your procedure code imports, all you have to do is check the boxes, that you want to import, so you have all the defaults correct, and click import. When you're done, click reset, it clears it out, type in a new range, and then click refresh to pull that up. And by the way, you do have the updates only. For example, if you want a list of range to find out what the new procedure codes are, well, let's first type in our range here to 90,000 to 91,000 again and click refresh. If nothing pulls up, that means that there's no new codes out there. But what about the ones that are changed within the range here of 90 to 91,000? Click refresh. If there are any that have changed, there's the status. See, all these 18 of about 164 have changed within that range. And of course you can do it by deleted as well. Now after you imported all your procedure codes, if you want to make any changes to them, or you want to create your own for that matter, you can do so under the Master Files menu, down to Transaction Codes, and then over and up to Charge Codes. And you can see here are all the defaults we just saw when we were importing our procedure codes. Like you can do a place of service, type of service, category, taxes. All we have to do is pull up the procedure code here that we just imported. Just type in the number, and then when you're ready, hit the Tab key, and you can see it automatically pulls in for me all the defaults that I imported, and if I need to make any changes, we'll do it here and click Save and you're done. In addition to the defaults that we covered, down below you have up to 6 cross-reference boxes. Now what that means, if you have an insurance carrier that doesn't use this procedure code, but for all the others you use this, you can use a cross-reference. For example, let's say Blue Cross Blue Shield, when we use 90283 for all our other insurance carriers, would rather have us use, I don't know, 90211, whatever that is. I'm making it up. What you'll do is you remember what box it's in, box number 2 for 90283, click Save. And then you'll learn this later on, but you'll go under your master files to carriers, to insurance carriers. Now in the insurance carrier screen, you'll watch the training video a little bit later on, but it will have the name of the insurance carrier, and then anytime you post a procedure code, which box is it referencing? We said box number 2. You can remember back in our charge codes, there's box number 2. Anytime I type in the procedure code 90283, is going to pull this instead. So that way I don't have to remember which insurance carrier wants what procedure code. If I use it for most of my insurance carriers, the 90283, and there's one misfit carrier that just doesn't agree with all the others, we can make the change here and just set the insurance carrier to reference this box here when we use this for all the others. In fact, we'll use this code for all of them. But because we set it up in the insurance carrier box for Blue Cross Blue Shield, it will pull this instead, so I don't have to memorize all these different codes, but just one. 2 more things we need to cover. First of all, if you decide to add a modifier to your procedure code, usually the easiest way of doing that is when you're posting charges. The medical billing software has modifiers for you to add next to your procedure codes, but you can also click inside here, hit the space bar, and type in your own modifiers and then click Save. And you want to make sure you have a space between your procedure code and your modifier if you want to do this manually. So there's my code with modifier 51. Now remember, the medical billing software has its own modifiers you can attach, but here's another way of doing it. Finally, you can tie your procedure codes to an inventory, so anytime I use this procedure code, maybe it takes out 2 tongue depressors, or I use a set of rubber gloves every time I pull this procedure code. You want to watch the inventory training video to learn more about this.